Hello friends, welcome to ASP.NET tutorial. In the past two videos, we learned about the basics of collections in data binding, and we also know what is list-based data binding. Now we will proceed with the example. That means here we are going to create the table, and after that we will place three controls. Simple list control, and then we will try to populate the control with the collection and data source property. Let's proceed with the example. Alright, now we are in Visual Studio and we will create a new project. So under Visual CH template, here we are choosing web and ASP.NET web application. Here we will choose the practice area ASP.NET, and we will name the solution as ASP19 simple data bind example, and here we will choose the empty template and click OK. This will create the project. So in the Solution Explorer, you can see the project name ASP19 simple data bind example. We will do a rebuild here. Okay, everything is good. Now we will add a web form. So just right click on the solution name and choose add new item. In the web Visual C++ web category, click on the web forms and choose web form. And here we are naming the web form as DTB01 simple bind, because we are going to use this same solution in our next coming subseries. And click add here. So now we have the web form ready. In the design view, you can see the web form. Let's go to the source. Now let's go ahead and add a table. So clicking on table, first you have to switch to the design view, then click on table, insert table, and choose number of rows as 3, number of columns as 3. Let's have a border of 1, and we will also have a border color. Background we will choose light yellow. And click OK here. So we are done with the table. We will save the content and go to source view. And in the source view, you can see we created a table and it contains 3 rows. Inside each row, we have 3 columns that is denoted by TD. So in the first row, we are placing a ASP label. Right. You can, let me save this and switch to design view, or let's go with the split. And in the split view, if you see, we have a list box control, right? I mean, we have a label control and the caption is a list box control. You can do it this way, or you can simply drag and drop the label and then set the relevant property. Since it's a time consuming process, here I directly pasted the code, but you can drag and drop the label control and set the properties. So here we are taking the default property ID as label1 run at server, and we are setting font property here. Let me close and reopen it. Font name Calibri, font size is large, and text we set. Next, let's proceed with the second table row. For now, here we can place the ListBox control. The first one is the label control, ASP colon label, and this time we added a ListBox control. ID is LST subject because we need to access this ListBox control at runtime. So we gave a specific ID, LST subject. You can put whatever name you want. Here we just gave LST subject. Then width we are giving 419 pixel. Let me save the content, and you can see the ListBox. Right, it is added to the second cell because that's the second table data, right? Next, we place one more label control. And save the content. So this first row is for ListBox control. Likewise, we can place other controls. So here we populated the control for second element. This is simply a label, and here we placed a checkbox list control, and you can see that here checkbox list control. After that we placed a label like we did previously. Now let's proceed with the third row. Alright. For the third row, we populated the cells. In the first cell, we placed the label, ASP label control. After that, we are using the RadioButtonList. You can simply drag and drop RadioButtonList to this third cell, or you can type the code as shown here. Then we placed some label, right? When I save the content, you can see that. So now we have three controls ready with us. The first one is the ListBox control, ASP colon ListBox. Second one is the ASP checkbox list, and the third one is the ASP RadioButtonList. Now let's go to the design view, and this is what the form we designed here. Alright, now we will go ahead and invoke the properties, and we will pin it here, and we will set auto post back property to true. So for all three controls, we are setting the auto post back property as true. That means whenever user picks an element here, the data will be posted back, and we will populate these labels. And you can see the control names are LBL ListBox, LBL checked list, and LBL radio list. So this is just to report the selected item. Now we will click on this project, right click, choose add new item, and we will add a class that will supply data to this data bind control, that means to these list based controls. And under Visual C++, click on code and choose class, and we will name this class as subject. Click on the add button and you can see a class is added to our project, and you can see subject.cs file is created. Inside our class we will have two public members, subject code and subject name, and if you see, the data type is string and it's a simple property with get and set methods. So we will provide a static method inside our subject class, right, get subject, and if you see here we are stating that it will retrieve a array list collection. So click on this show potential fix to include the required namespace. So here we will pick the using system.collection, or you can even pick a specific one, right? So let's go ahead with using system.collection. If you pick this, then we need to use a system.collection.arraylist each and every time when we are accessing this array list class. Instead, we can go with the using statement, right? Here using statement is added, and this is the get subject. At present it is not returning anything, that's why it is showing it as a error. Now we will have a constructor, right? The constructor takes string for subject code and subject name and assigns that to the internal member s code and s name. Inside this static method we will create 7 subjects, right? This is a static method and the class is subject, right? We are creating 7 subject, S1 to S7, and you can see the data here to the subject constructor that takes code and name, right? Here we are creating 7 instances of the subject object. Since this static method returns an array list, we will create an array list and add all our 7 subjects to it. Right, create collection of subject, that means here we are using the array list and subjects is our collection. Using the add method we are adding all these 7 subjects. Finally we are returning our subjects, right? This is the array list, right? And we are returning that, and if you see, the error is gone. Our class is ready. Subject class that contains 2 properties, and that property is assigned here in the constructor, and in the static method we are creating the 7 instances of subjects, adding that to the array list, and finally returning it. Alright, now let's go to the solution explorer. Our web form was already created, right? Let's go to the web form and right click the web form name and choose view code, or you can expand this and click on the CS file. So both the way you can view the code. This is the page load, right? All our list based control was already set with the postback event to true. So what we will do here, first we will check if it is not postback. Alright, brackets are matching, right? Yes, so first we are checking when it is not postback, then we are doing the data binding. So that's the way we are setting that perform data binding once. Right, for the very first time this form is loaded, the time we are doing the data binding. So here we are retrieving the array list. Subject is our class name. Since this method is static, without creating the instance of subject, we are just making call to get subjects, and we know that it will give us the array list of subject. So we need to include the system.collections. If you see, we have the array list and we are referencing that as data to bind. And we know that what these get subjects do, it will create in-memory object, forms the array list and returns that. And the return value we are referencing here it as data to bind. Now we will access our controls, that means ListBox, checked ListBox and RadioButtonList. We will access all three controls and make use of the DataSource property, then assign our array list. Here if you see, we are directly binding the array list to the DataSource property of all three controls. So if you look at the subject array, right, this is our subject class, right, that contains two members. One is subject code and subject name. So we can set which one we want to display in these three controls. So for that we make use of data text field property. You can read the description here. Gets or sets the field of data source that provides the text content for the list items, right? So data text field, we are specifying it as sname, right? Subject name means this is the subject name, right? Subject name, we are setting it as a data text field. That means all these controls, all these three controls displays the sname property, right? So that's the display element we are choosing. If you choose the other member scode, then subject code will be displayed on the controls. For all three controls, we set sname as the display text field. Finally, we need to make a call to data bind, right? This data bind we are calling at form level. So what happens, it will go and revisit all the controls present in this form, and in this form if you see there are 9 controls. In that 3 controls are assigned with the data source property. So this data bind will visit this data source property and it knows what is the collection assigned to all 3 controls and what data to display. So the data bind method will take care of retrieving the data which is bound to this control and display the sname in each 3 controls. This is ASP.NET form and it will revisit all 3 controls. Then it will revisit the data source property. Then it knows what is the item bound to the control. Then it knows what field to display, right? Now let's rebuild this solution once and run it. And if you see, this is the first control, right? The first control displays ListBox. The second one is the list-based control, and the third one is radio button controls. And if you see, the data source property is red and the content is displayed here. So here we are choosing the table property and we will set a border to it. And we will set border as 1. We will run it again. And this time you can clearly see all 3 controls. This is the first control and that is displaying our in-memory data. And this is the second control which is also displaying the in-memory data. And this is a radio button. Since it is radio button, you can select only one out of it. Alright, now let's see the auto post back event. Now we will go to our design view and select the control one by one. Choose properties. Click on the events tab and choose selected index changed. So when selected index is changed, we want to handle this specific function. Similarly, we'll go to properties and handle selected index changed, and we will do that for RadioButtonList as well. Selected index changed. So here we will report the selected subject. So for this one, we will make use of the control LBL ListBox. Right, here you can see ASP label hash LBL ListBox. LBL ListBox is the control ID, right? Or you can see that here as well. LBL ListBox, that's the ID we gave, or you can even see that here. Right, ID is LBL ListBox. Now LBL ListBox.text equal to LST subject dot selected value. So we already did our data binding. Here we are just reporting the selected item, and we can add similar code for other selected index changed events as well. Right, we are done with the code. Let's do the rebuild solution. All right, now we can run it. Right, here you can see. Right, and that's all here in this video, and you can see how the auto postback is working. The key here is we created all these controls, and we used the data source property, and we bound our in-memory data. So the key point you have to notice, data source property, right? And we gave our array list. Then we told data text field, and we specified which item to display. Here, for example, I am changing the first item with the S code, and now if you run this time, the first control displays the subject code, right, instead of subject name. All right, that's all here in this video. Thank you for watching. Bye.